Let's begin with the down to earth edition for the September month. The first important news that has been covered is Medishala. Now, Medishala is one of the platforms which is launched by the students of BITS Mesra, Ranchi, and this is a mobile application which helps in virtual consultation with the doctor. So, patients can actually book appointment with the doctors and speak over video call. There are nearly 8,000 users across Bihar, 50% of which are in rural area. The another important benefit of this is there have been two e-clinics which are established, one at Samastipur and one at Baharia district in Bihar, and here nearly 25 people would be there as a staff. Patients can come and visit the clinic. They can list down the ailments and connect the patient directly with the doctors through the help of the volunteers. So these are kind of e-clinics through which patients would be connected to the doctors virtually, but they would have a location where they can visit and connect to the doctors. The next is eShram portal. This is a portal which is launched by Ministry of Labour and Employment. Nearly 380 million informal workers across India would now be registered on this portal. So in case of any permanent disability or death, a cost coverage of nearly 2 lakh would be provided to their families. In case of partial disability, ex gratia of nearly 1 lakh would be provided to their family members. So this is the new portal which is launched specifically for the people working in unorganized sector, the informal sector of the economy, and this is known as the eShram portal. The next is Hara Bhara. Now this is a drone based afforestation project. This project has been partnered with this Hyderabad based startup Maruth Drones, and nearly 5 million trees would be planted across 12,000 hectares in the region of Telangana. Now, the concept would be through the seed copters, the drones would fly and disperse the seed balls in the forest areas and the wasteland areas, and this would eventually increase the green cover. The next important topic is the monsoon in India. However, till this edition, India was witnessing a deficit rainfall. Probably in the next edition, we would witness a surplus rainfall. But yes, the rainfall is above average for most of the regions. However, there have been sectors where there have been drought or low rainfall than average which has been registered. Baknali is one of the local processes which is seen in the Surendranagar district in Gujarat, and this is actually a method to divert the waters from the Narmada to the farms through the canals, and this is locally known as Baknali. Similarly, we have various other grid systems, for example Aneswari, Peswari and Gridwari systems, and all these are meant to reduce the crop loss, to find out the right location and right factors for crop growth. The heredity anomaly is an important predictor, and this has been assessed by IMD. IMD releases data for the month of September, and 90% of the districts were actually drier than the usual. Even the Kharif crop is underway despite the normal rains which have been witnessed, and only 30 out of the 733 districts which were analyzed were currently non-arid. So this shows the districts where we have the agricultural drought. So in this diagram we can see the deficit areas which have been marked, which have a significant deficit proportion. Mainly the regions of western India and the parts of Odisha had extremely deficit rainfall. Similarly, the precipitation index we can see has been changing across the various months, and the value is negative, which is yellow or red, which shows the drought conditions, which is mainly seen in the south and now moving towards the central India as well because of the rainfall uncertainty. And 4 of the states, which are Jammu Kashmir, Gujarat, Kerala, Odisha, 5 of the states and Manipur, have witnessed drier than normal months of rain till the month of September. However, we have seen delayed monsoon this year, and probably next edition would rule out these issues. We also have the issues which are related to rapid urbanization. Many of the towns like Munger and Khagaria in Bihar area have got inundated because of the heavy rainfalls in the region. Land degradation has increased significantly. We have seen in the last 15 years 22 times the size of Delhi has now become a degraded land, and this is the rate through which degradation of land is taking place. Land degradation, desertification, both of them going at a faster pace than the average. So almost 30% of the landmass of India is now degraded in one form or the other, and this area is close to 98 million hectares, which is 3 times the size of the state of Rajasthan in India. Now also we have seen that the situations have been different across different areas. For example, Rajasthan has reclaimed nearly 2.6 times the size of Delhi from the degraded land. Uttar Pradesh has reclaimed nearly 0.3 million hectares, and Telangana has reclaimed only 0.02 million hectares. So the amount of reclamation of land across various states has been different, and there have to be efforts which are taken in order to ascertain that the land degradation is as per the normal scenarios which can take place. The next important thing that we understand here is the stream of conflicts. Now state river disputes have been an important concern. Krishna and Godavari, we have seen the disputes between Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, the history of which we had cited in our previous lectures already on the interlinking of the rivers. And here again the idea is basically which states control the major proportion, and will they allow the water to be dispersed to the next state or not. So there have been various disputes in line to this. In 1969, one of the major disputes was regarding the Narmada Valley, and this was between Maharashtra, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. Then we had the Rivers Board Act, which was established in 1956, and this was to develop interstate river authorities and river valleys. We also need to understand the toxic flow in the rivers. Very, very important to note, mercury, the amount of mercury has been rising in the rivers. 1 million kg out of 1.3 million kg of mercury is deposited in the oceans every year, and this comes only from the rivers. 11% of the mercury is deposited in the coastal areas every year, and that is accounted mainly by 2 rivers, which is Ganga and Brahmaputra. The coastal areas have a very high proportion of mercury, and that is mainly in the form of legacy mercury. Now legacy mercury is due to human activity. This circulates either in the atmosphere or through the soil, and finally settles down and is carried by the rivers along the coast and deposits into the coast. Now there are various stages, 3 stages that we say. The first stage is how mercury is released. This could be either through a natural process of volcanic release or through human induced process, for example coal production, mining, which are all called under the category of legacy mercury. Now legacy mercury is human induced mercury. The stage 2 is the stage where air water exchange takes place, and this mercury gets deposited in the atmosphere, runs through the rivers and finally goes to the coastal areas. In the stage 3, this mercury, which is neurotoxic, actually brings in disability. It is believed that nearly 2.5 lakh intellectual disability every year is done because of mercury poisoning. The concerns are very, very significant, not only in India but worldwide. We have seen in Amazon in Latin America, 22% of the mercury deposits are present, which is followed by Ganga and Brahmaputra, which is 11%, and then China's Yangtze River, which is 4.8%. Now, the emissions are seen, as we mentioned, from mining, coal production, historical activities, emissions from power sector. We have chloroalkali plants which actually use mercury cell technology, and in both the forms, in the legacy form or the natural form, this mercury is getting deposited across the tracks. Now, we have to identify the potential hotspots where mercury is getting deposited and work for the refinements and the corrections for the same. The next is protecting ozone. Now, ozone is one of the layers in the stratosphere which prevents the harmful ultraviolet rays from reaching the earth. The rate of healing is very, very slow at the rate at which the ozone is actually destroyed. So if the ozone hole gets into, then the process through which it can be reduced is very, very slow. So the healing rate is very slow. We need to focus on reducing the hole itself rather than focusing on how to heal it. So ozone depletion, actually we have seen the chlorine free radicals. We have discussed this in our separate class on ozone hole and how it is formed. So there we have discussed how this chlorine free radical actually is binding with oxygen in the atmosphere, and it forms, basically dissociates as the oxygen. The ozone dissociates as oxygen and oxygen free radical. So that free radical binds with the chlorine free radical and ultimately is the cause for the depletion of the ozone layer. Again, we have seen that auroras are another important cause. The natural lights which can be seen in the north hemisphere, now these are usually purple and blue because of nitrogen, and green and red because of oxygen. Now this aurora, it is scientifically now studied that this aurora is responsible also for the ozone hole and the depletion of the ozone layer. Scientists have been illegally using trichlorofluoromethane, specifically in China, as per the studies I've quoted in 2019, which is again responsible for the depletion of the ozone hole. Now, we need to identify what are the sectors through which we have seen the emissions and the assessments for the same. Now, the most important thing that we need to understand here is the areas which are seen. So, it is either the projected case or the world avoided case. The rate at which the chlorofluorocarbons are sent into the atmosphere, and it is assumed that they would be in the atmosphere over a period of the time, versus the current rate of emission and the post regulation period through which that can be controlled. So that needs to be taken into consideration. The next important topic that we would understand is regarding food choices and food labeling. Now, all of the food packets that you purchase from market have certain labels. For example, if it is green mark, it shows vegetarian. If it is red, it shows there are other things besides the vegetarian component. Similarly, there are certain warning labels which are assigned. Now, these warning labels could be in the form of color, shape or graphics. Across various countries, various symbols are used to convey it. For example, Brazil and Colombia started that they would implement this warning system from 2022. Canada also enforced it, would be enforcing it from 2022. For India, we have seen at the front of the packets, we usually have the labels which are present, but the warning labels are not included in most of the local items which are seen. Now, what are the categories we can see? For example, in chili, it is the warning of a black and white octagon which says high in. That means that the product has high amount of either salt, sugar or fat beyond the threshold levels. In Peru, again, it has the same display method which also indicates the trans fat levels. Mexico has excess, the word excess instead of high in. So in Chile and Peru, the words that are used in the black and white octagon is high in. In Mexico, it is excess, and it is implemented as per the guidelines amount, the guidelines daily amounts. Similarly, in Israel, there is a different method. Rather than the black and white octagon, there is a red circle warning, and this has interpretative image. For example, salt shakers for salt, spoon for sugar, and butter and knife for fat indicator. Colombia, similar to Israel, has the warning signs which would be implemented in 2022, but rather than using red, they are using black color. Brazil is again using the same color with, again, not the word excess but the word high in. Uruguay is again using the same octagonal symbol with the word excess. So which countries are using the word excess, which countries are using the word high in, is again important. Uruguay implemented it recently in 2020, and they have given the food industries 18 months to adopt this policy. So in India, we need to understand that labeling is very, very important. Also, we have seen that similar to the traffic lights, we have the red, green and amber. Similarly, we have the markers for the fat, saturated fats and sugars. The green indicates low amount, amber indicates medium amount, and red indicates high amount. And this is an example which is explained here to indicate the summary. There are two ratings which are given. One is health star, which is 0 to 5. The other is Nutri score, which is actually A to E, and both of them are indicator of the amount of salt, sugar and fat which is present. So these indicators are taken as a reference point. Again, some of the packages also mention the per serving, the amount, the absolute quantities per serving. Malaysia and Thailand have adopted this system on a voluntary basis. Sometimes it is difficult to understand, but on the other hand, with numbers it is much clear and much more specific. In India, we also have a need for these warning labels to come up so that there is no mixed message for the consumers, and it becomes much more simpler, much more easier. The label implemented, we can see, in Israel is much more simpler because it has graphic content rather than the one implemented in China or Latin America. Junk food warnings are very, very important, and they should be very similar to the nicotine or the tobacco warnings which are given. FSSAI, which is the body in India which actually governs the food quality, must make certain logos. For example, there is already a green logo, as I mentioned, for vegetarian. There is a F plus logo for fortification. There is a organic food logo with a green tick which mentions Jaivik Bharat logo, and that shows the organic food product. So similar bills must come in for regulating and the salt levels. Now in 2019, the draft regulation committee talked about the total fat should be replaced with saturated fat, salt should be replaced with sodium, total sugar would be replaced with added sugar. Similarly, we have delinked the FOP labelings from FSS in 2020. In 2021, we have talked about the thresholds which have been released, and these are indicator of the weak laws in the company in the country which we have seen. For example, sugar limits on the ice cream, rather than getting decreased, have increased from 12 grams to 22 grams per 100 grams. However, in country like UK, the recommended limits is 30 grams on a daily basis. If it is 100 gram, if it has been increased from 12 to 22, it is a significantly high amount which we have noticed that has been seen. Also, the threshold lags is another important thing. We have seen that more than 4 times of the allowed saturated fat limits have been allowed, along with sodium relaxations for pasta, noodles, chips and namkeens in India. The dairy flavored milk, jams, jellies, fruits also have a very high proportion of sugar content and saturated fat levels which are seen. So there has to be some committee which regulates these kind of thresholds and provide a indicative warning. Also, the labeling needs to be taken into consideration on a very specific goal. Ratings like star and healthline should be again important, and the Nutri-Score range is again important. If it is 0 to 5, if the item range is somewhere in 2.5 range, that could be interpretative because you can say it is low or it is high. So there should be obvious clear rating levels which can help understand the population. In India, we say the calorie intake is around 2000 kilocalories, which is based as a standard threshold, and this focuses on 3 meals a day with 25% of the calories contributed through the main course, and then you have 10 to 12% of the calories contributed through the various snacks. So this range should be taken into account, and the thresholds based on the higher levels, we say 30% should be the capping for the total fats and 10% for the sugar. Now these should be strictly implemented in some form or the other. Now some other little important news. For example, in UN has declared world is now having lead-free petrol. Algeria was the last country to prohibit the use of lead in petrol in August 2021. Similarly, most of the mountain forests which are a store of the carbons are now focusing on various studies which have been done by the students from University of York, UK. We have seen that large scale indigenous farming of seaweed has now been promoted, and in India seaweed farming is now increasing. So those were some of the highlights that we have covered. Along with that, we have another important section which is on the Kathleen-Carey law and the innovation issue, and this is how mRNA could be used to instruct the cells and make own medicines including the vaccines. Now this work has made are very very popular, and there have been various concepts which have been working, various patents which are now working around the technologies of mRNA and mRNA's role to fight the disease. So that was about this edition. We will be covering many more interesting topics in the upcoming Down to Earth. Down to Earth comes every 15 days, so stay subscribed for next editions, and wish you a very good luck for your upcoming examination. In the meanwhile, if you have any questions or doubts, feel free to connect to us through the email ID given in the description below. Wish you good luck.